Hi, my name is Mallory Nelson, and I teach Family and Consumer Sciences with Butler Technology Development Schools. And what I have right here is our student AUP that I revised and added and edited some things according to the documents that were uploaded in the reading section to make it a little bit better. We have a separate staff AUP and student AUP. They're very similar. Staff has a couple additional items that we have to be responsible for, as well as a different type of punishment, consequences for not following the rules, and the students do. But the first thing that I opted to do was I went through and in green highlighted some things that I thought were important or interesting that I wanted to kind of just point out. I didn't add this information, it was already in there. But I thought something that was first interesting was the personal responsibility section for the students. It says they're agreeing to report any misuse of the network. And the reason I found that extremely important is back in the fall, our wireless network was hacked. It had a password that somehow a student used some hacking software to figure out what the wireless password was, and then passed it out to all of the student body that they could get on their phones. Because on the wireless, Facebook and Twitter and all the things that the students are interested in on their phones is blocked. But if they could get on this staff wireless, they had access to those things. And so what happened was we have 680 IP addresses available for our 680 staff and student machines used within our classrooms. So every time a student jumped on the master network on their phone, it then made one student or teacher machine that couldn't access the internet. And with 2,700 students in our building, those 680 IP addresses went up quick, and then we could never do anything on our computer. So I kind of just wanted to point that out. I would point that out to students so that they would see that even by you didn't hack the network, you didn't do anything directly by using the network and not reporting who has it or things like that, you are just as guilty. Educational purposes only, it said clearly in there, and I just wanted to mention that because I have students ask me all the time if they can get on and do something that's not inappropriate or anything like that. But I got a student recently that wanted to fill out a job application instead of doing the classwork, and although that's acceptable and that's appropriate for it's not anything illegal or unsafe, wasn't what we were geared towards. I think sometimes they think that if it's not pornography or Facebook or things like that, that it should be something they can do on school computers. Harassing messages, I kind of did that because we do a lot of discussion boards, and there have been a few times in the past where students don't realize that when they post something, we have Angel for student usage at my school, that their name is tied to the post, and so they kind of send some threatening and just harassing type messages, and I would point that out. Some uses that jeopardize the security of student access and of the computer, kind of just going back to our hacking situation back in the fall semester, just letting them know how to be safe with their passwords, because we were safe, but there's always someone that's a little bit smarter with computers that could possibly access your information. We have a kind of an issue in I wouldn't call it an issue, I guess, but some teachers think it's okay to be friends with students on Facebook and social networking sites, while as others don't. And I kind of just wanted the students to take a little bit of responsibility. Yes, the adults should, have primary responsibility in this, but just don't request us as your friends. I have students that request me and I ignore their requests or decline them, and they get upset by it and they don't understand why. So just kind of putting that in there as just another reminder. I liked this part because parents sign this document in the end, but I'm sure they don't read it, and if they did, they would see that we are letting them know that we think that they are the best guides of instructing and guiding their students with what should and should not be viewed and done on the internet. So I kind of would have students maybe highlight that part of it. Right here, part of, I know in one of the articles, the attachments that were included in the reading section, it talked about whether or not you would or would not use filtering technologies to filter what students see, and so I just kind of highlighted there to note that we do have a web filter. and just, this is huge, this configuration section every time, because I have, 30 laptop machines that are mine for my classroom use, and every time a student gets on, there is a different background, or they flipped the screen upside down, or rearranged icons, or things like that. So I would point this out, like, look, that's not okay to do, that's not allowed. And also to let them know they don't believe me when I tell them, but just again, that if something goes wrong with your computer and it's, we deem that it's your fault and wasn't an accident, wasn't, something that just happened with the age of the computer, that the student and the parent would be held liable for repairs or replacement costs. Any personal device, because we do use some app incorporation of cell phone apps and smartphone apps, and that they're used for, again, way up in the top, it said for educational uses and educational purposes. So we do have that included, but just to let them know that, again, whatever they do on that phone when in that class needs to go along with everything that this AUP says. And also, one last thing I really just wanted them to know is that because they're on our network using our equipment and our internet, that it's really not private, that we have the right, the district has the right to review and do searches on what they've done on the computer, that students often say that that's creeping, but just let them know that we're allowed to do that. And then if I go back up to the top in blue, those are things that I've added, that after reading through the readings I felt needed to be added, that were missing. So the first thing is important terms and definitions, and a lot of these terms they know, but they may not know in relation to the internet and safety and so forth. So I just defined a couple important words that I thought, as they read through, these words would come up several times. They would know exactly in what context we're referring to. Another thing that I added here that is that if a student doesn't understand a rule or a piece of this AUP, that it's their responsibility to ask, because I have so often students that don't follow a piece of this AUP and have consequences, sent their way, and they didn't understand that that was that wasn't allowed. I didn't know, and so here I'm just letting them know that it's okay to ask. If I tell you or you read that something is not okay, or you're not sure exactly what all that entails, to ask, and we can clarify, so that way we can both be in the clear, and you don't get in trouble, and I can, get work produced by you. And then anything down here with the hacking, again, I just added this because, like I said, it was such an intense headache this past semester in the fall when we couldn't get on the network. It was for several weeks because our IT department had to kind of reconfigure and kind of change the way the networks were set up so that it wouldn't happen again. And that, I know that there's still a way, like students aren't allowed to access YouTube, which, I feel a little bit differently about, but it's still a blocked website. But I know that there's a way that they, several students know to go around it, and then that's not okay to do that. That there's a team of experts we have that decide what is and is not appropriate to, be viewed and used by students, and they need to respect that. So I kind of just added that in there after this last semester to really drive home the point of, that it is considered hacking. I added a section about cyberbullying. I read that one article, that one reading, and I think that that is more prevalent than a lot of people are willing to admit. And so here I kind of just wanted to define it and let them know where Butler Tech stood, and then also just give them some tips and, some ideas if, you have students or you personally are experiencing any of these, might be a victim of cyberbullying, and I wanted them to kind of see what some of those symptoms might look like, so maybe they could help a friend or even themselves. Here I just kind of made it a little bit clear about any and all violations of this AUP will result in consequences that align with the satellite school district, because basically the way we're set up is we do have a home school that is a main vocational school campus, but then we have 11 satellite school districts where we, and this is what I do, I'm actually in another local school district, Fairfield City Schools, and we kind of are in their building, and that's where we teach, all day long, and so that they would their consequences would be whatever that home school district would deem, whatever their guidelines and outlines are, because different schools have different policies, and that would be what they would fall under. But if there were criminal or illegal actions that occurred, Butler Tech officials would, along with the homeschool districts, kind of pursue the charges if necessary if illegal action happened on their equipment. I added this in there just kind of to let students know. A lot of students aren't familiar with the fact that we have land school software. So even if I happen to be sitting at my desk and I'm not standing over their shoulder, I can still clearly see what they're doing. So sometimes I think if they just know that, they're less likely to try things, because a lot of students I know think that if I'm sitting at my desk, I don't know what they're doing. So just by letting them know that we do have the software and letting them know what it is, that we will be monitoring all the time, non-stop, what we're doing. And I have the Land School app on my iPad, so I can even do it if I am, looking over Johnny's shoulder. I can also see what Billy across the room is doing as well. I just carry my iPad with me. And that's really it. And then down here, the parents have to sign, students have to sign, and then these are kept on file. And actually, we ask them to sign it again every year. So even, though they might have them as a sophomore and again as a junior and senior, they're just asked to sign it every year, so that way we always have a copy that is less than a year old. And this is always held up in our instances and our issues and problems. This is always, this AUP has served very well, and it's very clearly defined, and there's never really been an issue, because if the student and parent signs it, and then they break a rule, it's not our fault they didn't read it. So what I would do, honestly, a big change I would do, by the way, I incorporate this into my classrooms. On the first day of school, when I pass these out to students, I'm not going to read through everything, because that would bore them and myself as well. But I would, again, the green parts and the blue things that I've added, I would definitely make sure to hit home and clarify and make sure that they're aware of. So that way, if they know it's against the rules, sometimes they're less likely to do it. So that's Butler Tech's AUP. And I think it needs some changes, needs some adaptations, but it's a very, very good, strong base to start with.